I remember exactly how the house smelled that night. Vanilla candles mixed with grilled steak and something citrusy from the cleaning spray I'd used an hour earlier. It was supposed to be perfect. Our 10th anniversary. Double digits. A milestone that felt like it actually meant something. In a world where most people we knew barely made it past 3. I had spent weeks planning it. Not just a dinner, an entire night. Friends, family, a catered spread in the backyard, string lights draped across the fence like something out of a Pinterest board I'd obsessively scrolled through at 2 a.m. I even rented those tall cocktail tables with white linens because I wanted it to feel elevated, like we were celebrating something real, not just going through the motions. And for most of the evening, it worked. People laughed, glasses clinked. My husband, Daniel, had his arm around me more than usual, pulling me into side hugs as he talked to his coworkers, introducing me like he was proud. This is my wife, Claire. 10 years and she still puts up with me. Everyone chuckled. I smiled. It felt easy, but there was this small, quiet part of me that couldn't fully relax. Maybe it was the way his phone kept buzzing in his pocket earlier that afternoon, or how he stepped into the garage twice to take calls he said were work stuff. Or maybe it was just me. 10 years does something to you. You start noticing patterns, shifts in tone, the little micro-expressions that didn't used to mean anything but now suddenly do. Still, I pushed it down. Tonight wasn't the night to spiral. Around 8:30, the sky had turned that deep navy blue, and the backyard lights were glowing just right. People were on their second or third drinks, voices louder, conversations messier. That's when Melissa showed up. My sister-in-law, Daniel's older sister. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room and shift the entire atmosphere without even trying. Not because she was warm or magnetic, but because she carried this sharp, unpredictable energy. Like you never quite knew if she was about to hug you or cut you down in front of everyone. She was late, which wasn't unusual. She always made an entrance. Tight black dress, heels clicking against the stone patio, a glass of wine already in her hand, like she'd brought her own pregame energy with her. Her eyes scanned the yard, and then they landed on me. That smile. It wasn't friendly. "Wow," she said as she approached, her voice loud enough that a few people nearby turned. "You really went all out, huh?" I forced a light laugh. "It's 10 years. Figured we should celebrate." She took a slow sip of her wine, still watching me. "Yeah, 10 years. That's impressive." Something in the way she said it made my stomach tighten. Daniel came over then, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "There she is. Thought you weren't coming." Melissa leaned into him briefly, then pulled back. Wouldn't miss it. Her eyes flicked to me again. Not for this. I tried to shake it off. Melissa had always been difficult, critical, a little invasive, the kind of person who asked questions that felt more like interrogations. We'd never been close, but we'd managed to stay civil. For Daniel's sake. For the next half hour, things stayed relatively normal. I floated between guests, checking on food, refilling drinks, making sure everyone was comfortable. But I could feel Melissa's presence like a shadow. Every time I glanced her way, she was watching me. Not casually, intentionally. At one point, I saw her talking to Daniel near the kitchen door. Their heads were close together, voices low. His expression looked tight, like he was trying to keep something contained. When he noticed me looking, he straightened up too quickly and gave me that same practiced smile. That was when the uneasiness really started to settle in. I walked over, trying to keep my tone light. "Everything okay?" Daniel nodded a little too fast. "Yeah, just work stuff." Melissa was asking about that project I told you about. Melissa let out a small, almost amused breath. "Yeah, work stuff." There was something loaded in the way she said it. But before I could press, someone called my name from across the yard, asking about more ice. I got pulled away again. By 9:30, we had everyone gathered for a toast. Daniel stood beside me, one hand resting on my lower back. He cleared his throat, lifting his glass. "I just want to say, 10 years ago, I married my best friend. Claire, you've been my rock through everything. I don't say it enough, but I wouldn't be where I am without you." People murmured, ahs floating through the air. I looked up at him, searching his face. For a moment, it felt real, solid. The man I thought I knew. "I love you," he said quietly, just for me. "I love you too," I replied, even though something in my chest felt slightly offbeat. We clinked glasses. Everyone cheered. And that's when Melissa laughed. Not a big laugh, not loud, but sharp enough to cut through the noise. Heads turned. She took a step forward, raising her glass slightly. Her eyes locked on me. "This is really something." she said, her tone dripping with something I couldn't quite name yet. A whole party celebrating 10 years of marriage? I felt my pulse start to pick up. Melissa, she tilted her head, like she was studying me. You must be really proud, Claire. A few people shifted uncomfortably. The energy changed instantly, like someone had flipped a switch. Daniel's hand tightened on my back. Mel, not tonight. But she didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on me, steady, unblinking. I mean, she continued, her voice louder now, carrying across the yard. It takes a lot of nerve to throw a party like this when you've been sleeping with someone else. For a second, I didn't even understand the words. They hung in the air, disconnected from reality. What? I said, almost laughing, because it was so absurd. What are you talking about? A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Melissa's lips curled slightly. Oh, don't play dumb. It's embarrassing. My chest tightened. I'm not playing anything. I have no idea what you're accusing me of. She took another step closer, lowering her voice just enough to make people lean in. You really think you've been that careful? I felt heat rush to my face. Careful about what? Daniel moved beside me, his voice tense. Melissa, stop. You're out of line. She shot him a quick glance. Am I? Or do you just not want to hear it out loud? That landed heavier than anything else. I turned to him, searching his face again. Daniel, what is she talking about? He looked conflicted. Not confused, not shocked. Conflicted. And that was the moment something inside me cracked. Tell me, I said, my voice dropping. Before he could answer, Melissa stepped in again, clearly enjoying the attention now. Fine, I'll say it. You've been having an affair, Claire, for months, maybe longer. A few gasps. Someone muttered, Jesus. I stared at her, my mind racing, trying to make sense of it. That's insane. You're insane. She shrugged slightly. Am I? Because I've seen the messages. My stomach dropped. What messages? I demanded. Melissa smiled, slow and deliberate. The ones you didn't think anyone else would see. I shook my head, anger starting to burn through the confusion.
I don't know what game you're playing, but this is not the time or place. Oh, it's exactly the time, she cut in. 10 years of lies deserves an audience, don't you think? I could feel everyone watching. Friends, family, people who had just been laughing and drinking with me minutes ago, now staring like I was someone they didn't recognize. I looked at Daniel again. Do you believe this? He hesitated. That hesitation hit harder than any accusation. I don't know what to believe right now, he admitted quietly. It felt like the ground shifted under me. You don't know? I repeated, my voice breaking slightly. After 10 years, you don't know? Melissa let out a soft, satisfied exhale. That's the problem with secrets. They always come out eventually. I clenched my hands at my sides, forcing myself to stay steady. Then show them. She blinked. What? You said you've seen messages, I said, louder now. Show them. Right now, in front of everyone. A flicker of something crossed her face. Not hesitation exactly, but a recalibration. Careful what you wish for, she said. I stepped closer, meeting her stare. No, I'm done with this. If you're going to stand in my house and accuse me of something like that, you don't get to be vague. You show it or you shut up. The entire backyard had gone silent. Melissa held my gaze for a long second, then slowly reached into her purse. And as she pulled out her phone, I realized something that made my heart start pounding for an entirely different reason. Because whatever she thought she had, I already knew exactly what she was about to show them, and she had no idea what she just walked into. The moment she pulled out her phone, everything inside me shifted from panic to something colder, sharper, because I knew exactly what she was about to do, and I knew she had no idea what she was really holding. Go ahead, I said, my voice steadier now than I expected. Show everyone. Daniel grabbed my arm lightly. Claire, wait. No, I cut him off, not even looking at him. If this is happening, it's happening all the way. My heart was slamming so hard I could feel it in my throat, but outwardly I stayed still, controlled. I couldn't afford to look scared anymore, not when every pair of eyes in that backyard was locked on us like this had suddenly turned into a live show. Melissa unlocked her phone slowly, deliberately, like she was savoring the moment. Her lips curled just slightly, like she already saw the end of this in her favor. I didn't want it to go like this, she said, glancing around at everyone, but I guess some people need to be exposed. A few people shifted uncomfortably.
I caught fragments of whispers. My name, Daniel's name, words like affair, seriously, floating through the air like smoke. Melissa tapped her screen a few times, then held it up just enough for me to see. And there it was. The messages. Except they weren't what she thought they were, because the name at the top of the screen wasn't mine. It was hers. For a split second, confusion flickered across her face, like something wasn't lining up the way she expected. But before she could process it, I stepped closer. Just enough so I could see the full thread clearly. Every message, every timestamp, every word. I felt something inside my chest tighten, but I didn't let it show. You want to read them out loud? I asked quietly. Melissa blinked, clearly thrown off now. What? Go ahead, I said louder this time so everyone could hear. Since you're so confident, read them. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Daniel was staring at the phone now too, his expression slowly shifting from confusion to something darker, something heavier. Melissa, he said, his voice low but sharp. What am I looking at? She swallowed, trying to recover. This is, Claire's been texting someone. I found these on her. No, I interrupted, shaking my head slowly. Don't lie when it's right in front of you. I reached out and gently took the phone from her hand before she could stop me. My fingers trembled slightly, but I forced myself to stay steady as I turned the screen outward, making sure everyone close enough could see. Let's clear this up, I said. I scrolled up through the thread, my eyes scanning messages I had already memorized in my head long before tonight. Messages I had found weeks ago. Messages I hadn't confronted anyone about yet. Until now. You said I've been having an affair, I continued, my voice calm but cutting. So let's look at who these messages are actually between. I tapped the top of the screen, bringing up the contact details. And then I turned the phone toward Daniel. Go ahead, I said quietly. Tell everyone whose number that is. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Daniel stared at the screen for what felt like forever. I watched his face carefully, every micro-expression, every shift in his eyes as recognition hit him like a wave he couldn't stop. His jaw tightened, his shoulders stiffened. And then finally he spoke. His voice cracked slightly before he cleared his throat. That's Melissa's number. A ripple of shock spread through the people closest to us. Melissa's face went pale. That's not, she started, but the words died in her throat. I didn't give her time to recover. And the other contact, I asked, scrolling down just enough so the second name appeared. Daniel's eyes followed the movement of my hand, and when he saw it, everything changed. Because this time, there was no confusion, no hesitation, just pure, undeniable recognition. His voice dropped lower, barely above a whisper now. That's me. The backyard erupted. Gasps, murmurs, voices overlapping in disbelief. What the hell? Wait, what does that mean? Are they? I didn't hear most of it. All I could focus on was the look on Daniel's face, the way the color drained from it, the way his eyes darted from the phone to Melissa, and then slowly, painfully, to me. Claire, he said, his voice breaking in a way I had never heard before. Don't. I cut him off, shaking my head. Because if he started talking now, I knew exactly what he'd do. He'd try to explain, he'd try to soften it, he'd try to make it sound like something it wasn't. And I couldn't let that happen. Not anymore. Since we're already doing this in front of everyone, I said, my voice louder now, stronger, even though it felt like something inside me was cracking open with every word. Let's not pretend. I held up the phone again, scrolling through the messages slowly so people could see the timestamps, the late-night texts, the words that blurred together into something ugly and undeniable. You didn't just accuse me of cheating, I continued, my eyes locking onto Melissa's now panicked expression. You tried to expose me using evidence of your own affair. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. You really thought you could twist this, I said, taking a step closer to her. You thought you could walk into my house at my anniversary party and turn everyone against me before I even had a chance to say anything. My voice shook slightly now, but I didn't stop. You didn't think I already knew. That landed hard. Melissa's eyes widened just slightly, the first real crack in her composure. What do you mean, you knew? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper now.
I let out a slow breath, because this was the moment, the point of no return. I found the messages weeks ago, I said quietly, on his laptop. He forgot to log out. I glanced at Daniel briefly, just long enough to see the guilt written all over his face. I didn't say anything, I continued, turning my attention back to Melissa. Not right away. I needed to understand what I was looking at. My grip tightened slightly around the phone. And you know what I realized? The silence felt heavier now, more suffocating than before. This wasn't just some mistake, I said. This wasn't something that just happened. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep going, even though my chest felt like it was caving in. This was planned, repeated, hidden. I looked directly at Daniel now. And you both thought you were being so careful. The words hung in the air like a final blow. And for the first time all night, no one said a word. For a few seconds, nobody moved. It was like the entire night had frozen in place, suspended in this heavy, suffocating silence that pressed in from all sides. I could hear the faint hum of the string lights above us, the distant sound of a car passing somewhere down the street, completely disconnected from what was happening in my backyard. My backyard. The place I had spent weeks preparing to celebrate a marriage that apparently had already been rotting from the inside. I didn't cry. Not yet. I think part of me had already done all the crying weeks ago, alone, sitting on the edge of our bed at 2 a.m. with Daniel's laptop open in front of me, staring at messages I couldn't unsee. Now, all I felt was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Melissa was the first to break. This is twisted, she said, shaking her head quickly, her voice scrambling to find footing again. You're twisting this to make it look like something it's not. I actually let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Really? I said, tilting my head slightly. Then explain it. Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Daniel, like she was expecting him to jump in, to back her up, to take control of the situation. He didn't. He just stood there, staring at the ground now, his hands clenched at his sides like he was bracing for something he couldn't stop. That's what I thought, I said quietly. I turned slightly, addressing the small crowd that had now formed in a loose circle around us. People weren't even pretending to mingle anymore. Everyone was watching. Some of my friends looked horrified. Daniel's coworkers looked deeply uncomfortable, like they had accidentally walked into something way too personal to witness. I wasn't going to do this tonight, I said, my voice steady but quieter now, more controlled. I planned this entire evening because I thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was some explanation I hadn't seen yet. I swallowed hard. But then she walks in here, I continued, gesturing toward Melissa without looking at her, and tries to humiliate me with this narrative. I shook my head slowly. No, if we're doing this, we're doing it honestly. Melissa let out a sharp breath. You don't get to play the victim here. That made me look at her again, really look at her. There was still defiance there, but underneath it now, panic, cracks spreading fast. I'm not playing anything, I said. I'm just done covering for people who thought they could get away with it. Daniel finally spoke again, his voice low and strained. Claire, can we not do this here? I turned to him, and for a moment everything else faded. It was just us. 10 years of memories compressed into one unbearable moment. You mean, in the house I paid for? I asked quietly. At the party I planned? With the people I invited to celebrate a marriage you were busy betraying? Each word landed heavier than the last. He flinched. That small reaction almost broke something in me, but I pushed through it. This is happening here, I said, because you made it happen long before tonight. Melissa crossed her arms tightly, like she was trying to hold herself together. You're acting like you're innocent in all this. That stopped me. A slow, dangerous stillness settled over me as I turned back to her. Innocent? I repeated. She lifted her chin slightly, clinging to whatever ground she thought she still had. Yeah, you really expect everyone to believe you had no idea, that you just sat on this for weeks and said nothing? That's not normal, Claire. That's, calculating? I stared at her for a long second. Then I nodded once. You're right, I said. That seemed to catch her off guard. That's not normal, I continued. You know what else isn't normal? Finding out your husband is sleeping with his own sister-in-law. A few people audibly gasped at that. I didn't look away from her. You want to talk about why I didn't say anything right away?
I asked. Because I needed to be absolutely sure before I blew up my entire life. My voice tightened slightly, but I kept it together. Because once I said it out loud, there was no going back. Daniel dragged a hand over his face, his breathing uneven now. Claire, please. I ignored him. I watched, I said, my eyes flicking between the two of them. I paid attention. I saw the way you avoided each other in public, but somehow always ended up in the same room. The late-night texts, the family dinners that turned into excuses. Melissa shook her head again, but it was weaker now. You're reaching. No, I said calmly. I was patient. And that word, patient, seemed to land differently. Because patience meant intention. It meant I hadn't just stumbled into this. It meant I had been preparing. I even considered confronting you privately, I admitted. Both of you, giving you a chance to come clean without this. The irony hung thick in the air. But then tonight happened, I said, and you made the choice for me. Melissa's composure finally started to crack completely. This wasn't supposed to, she stopped herself abruptly, but it was too late. I caught it. Daniel caught it. Everyone close enough caught it. This wasn't supposed to what? I asked softly. She pressed her lips together, shaking her head quickly. Nothing. No, I said, stepping closer again. Say it. Her eyes darted around like she was looking for an escape that didn't exist. This wasn't supposed to what, Melissa? I repeated. Her voice dropped, barely audible now. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. And there it was. The truth, slipping out in pieces. I felt something shift in my chest. Not relief, not satisfaction, just confirmation. You planned it, I said. It wasn't a question. She didn't respond. You planned to accuse me, I continued, to control the narrative before I could say anything about what I found. Daniel's head snapped toward her. What? Melissa's silence said everything. I let out a slow breath, shaking my head slightly. You really thought I wouldn't fight back, I said. You thought I'd panic, deny it, look guilty? I held up the phone again. And you thought this would be enough to convince everyone. The backyard felt smaller now, the air heavier. One of Daniel's coworkers muttered something under his breath, clearly uncomfortable, and quietly stepped away. A couple of my friends exchanged looks, unsure whether to stay or give space, but no one fully left. No one could.
Because this wasn't just drama anymore. This was something else, something uglier. Daniel finally looked at Melissa fully, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. You were going to throw her under the bus to cover this? Melissa's eyes snapped to him. Don't act like you're innocent, Daniel. You're in this too. I wasn't going to do this, he shot back, his voice rising. Not like this. Yeah, she snapped. So what was your plan? Keep lying forever? Their voices started overlapping, tension snapping between them like a live wire. And for the first time all night, I stepped back, just slightly. Because watching them turn on each other, it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't some tragic mistake. This was selfishness, cowardice, calculation. I felt strangely calm, detached, like I was already starting to step outside of a life that just hours ago I thought I was celebrating. I looked around at the faces watching us, people who had come here for laughter, for a party, for a celebration. Now they were witnessing the collapse of something that had taken 10 years to build. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't the one being exposed tonight. They were. And I wasn't done yet. The strange thing about everything falling apart in public is that after a certain point, the embarrassment stops mattering. It just disappears. All those little social fears, what people think, how you look, whether you're saying the right thing, none of it survives a moment like that. It burns off, leaving something raw and honest behind. That's where I was standing, right in the middle of it, watching the two people who had been sneaking around behind my back unravel in front of everyone who mattered. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, his composure completely gone. This is insane, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. This is completely out of control. Melissa let out a short, bitter laugh. Out of control? You think this just happened tonight? I watched them, arms loosely at my sides, no longer trying to hold anything together. No, I said quietly. It started the moment you two decided I didn't deserve the truth. They both went silent again.
That line landed because it stripped everything down to what it actually was. No excuses, no distractions, just a choice. Daniel looked at me then, really looked at me, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time all night. His eyes were glassy, his face tight with something that almost resembled regret. "Claire," he started, his voice softer now, "I didn't want it to go this far." I tilted my head slightly. "You mean getting caught?" His jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" I asked, my tone calm but unwavering. "Because from where I'm standing, this went exactly as far as your actions took it." He didn't have an answer for that. Melissa scoffed under her breath, crossing her arms again like she was trying to rebuild some version of control. "You're acting like you're completely above this, like you didn't just orchestrate your own little reveal." That almost made me smile. "You're right," I said. "I did." That got everyone's attention again. Daniel frowned slightly. "What?" I shifted my weight, letting out a slow breath. "I found the messages 3 weeks ago," I said. "Not tonight. Not by accident." I glanced briefly at the house behind me, the place that had been my home, my safe space for a decade. And I didn't say anything because I needed to decide how I was going to walk away. The word "walk away" hung in the air like something fragile. Daniel blinked. "Walk away?" I nodded once. "I met with a lawyer last week," I continued, my voice steady. "I got copies of everything. Phone records, messages, dates, times." Melissa's posture stiffened again. "You? What?" "I needed to protect myself," I said simply, "because clearly neither of you were going to." Daniel looked like the ground had dropped out from under him all over again. "Claire, you're serious right now?" I held his gaze. Completely. The weight of that settled over him slowly, visibly. "You were just going to leave?" he asked, like the concept itself didn't fully make sense to him yet. I let out a quiet breath. "I was going to give you a chance to tell me the truth first." That hit him. Hard. "But you didn't," I added, "and tonight made it very clear you weren't planning to." Melissa shifted uncomfortably. "So what, this whole thing was some setup?" I shook my head. "No. The party was real. The celebration was real." My voice softened just slightly, just for a second. I wanted it to be real. That silence again. Different this time. Heavier. "But I also knew," I continued, my tone sharpening again, "that if anything went sideways, I wasn't going to stand there and let you rewrite the story." I held up the phone one last time before lowering it again. "You tried to make me the villain," I said to Melissa. "That was your mistake." She didn't respond, because there wasn't anything left to say. Around us, people started to shift more noticeably now. The energy had changed completely. This wasn't something they could laugh off or awkwardly ignore anymore. Some of my friends moved closer to me, not saying anything, just there. Quiet support. Daniel noticed it too. And I think for the first time, it really hit him what this meant. Not just tonight. Everything. "You're really doing this," he said, his voice hollow. "I already did," I replied. That was the truth. This moment wasn't the beginning. It was the confirmation. He took a step toward me, lowering his voice. "Claire, we can talk about this, privately. We don't have to." "No," I said firmly. That word felt final in a way nothing else had all night. "We don't get to go back to private conversations," I continued. "You lost that when you decided to lie to me every single day." He looked like he wanted to argue, to push back, but nothing came out. Because what could he say? There wasn't a version of this where he came out looking like the person he thought he was. I turned slightly, looking at Melissa one last time. "And you," I said, my voice quieter now, but just as sharp, "don't ever come into my home again thinking you have any right to speak about my life." Her lips pressed together tightly, but she didn't argue. The fight was gone. Just like that. I exhaled slowly, feeling something inside me finally loosen, like I'd been holding my breath for weeks without realizing it. "I think the party's over," I said. Not loudly, but enough for people to hear. No one objected. People started to gather their things, quietly, respectfully. A few friends came up to me, squeezing my hand, giving me soft, supportive looks. No big speeches, no awkward pity, just understanding. That meant more than anything. Daniel stood there, unmoving, like he didn't know what to do next. Melissa avoided everyone's eyes, grabbing her purse, her earlier confidence completely gone. I watched her walk out first. Then I looked at him. 10 years. All reduced to this. You should go too, I said. He swallowed hard. Claire? I shook my head slightly. There's nothing left to say tonight. That was the truth. He stood there for another second, like he was hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. And eventually, he left. Just like that. The door closed behind him, and for the first time all night, everything went quiet.
Not the tense, suffocating silence from before. A different kind. Empty. I stood there in the middle of the backyard, surrounded by half-finished drinks, untouched plates of food, decorations that suddenly felt meaningless. But underneath all of it, there was something else. Not relief, not yet, but something close. Because for the first time in weeks, I wasn't in the dark anymore, and neither were they.